We all think we know how habits work, don't we? We set a goal, we try to power through, use all that willpower, and then, well, more often than not, it just kind of fades away.
Hmm.
Or maybe we start really strong, for a few days, maybe even a week, and then suddenly we find ourselves right back where we started. It's such a universal struggle, isn't it? This whole wanting to change, knowing what we should be doing,
Right.
but actually sticking with it. That feels like the real mystery sometimes. Why do some changes seem to last and, others just fizzle out?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, really.
So today we're diving deep into that exact question. We're going to explore the surprising truth behind what are called atomic habits. These tiny, seemingly insignificant changes that actually, when they compound over time, can lead to truly remarkable transformations.
The compounding effect, it's
Yeah.
huge.
Exactly. And our source material for this deep dive, it comes from this really comprehensive, insightful work on habit formation. It pulls from behavioral science, psychology, real-world stuff, and it challenges a lot of what we think we know about what it takes to change.
It really does flip some common ideas on their head.
So our mission today for you listening is to really explore this fascinating material together. We want to uncover the most important nuggets of knowledge about how habits truly work, how we can build the good ones, break the bad ones,
Yeah.
and how to leverage all these insights to become the person we genuinely want to be. And here's, I think, the crucial part. This isn't just about willpower. It's not some magic trait that some people just have.
No, definitely not.
It's about understanding the underlying science, the practical systems that actually govern our behavior.
Mechanics behind it all.
Yeah. And to really set the stage for how powerful these tiny changes can be, let me share this really compelling personal story. It's directly from the author of our source material, James Clear.
Oh, yeah. His story's incredible.
It really is.
Yeah.
So when he was in high school, he had this severe baseball accident. Got struck right in the face with a bat, led to memory loss, a medically induced coma, and then repeated post-traumatic seizures. Just devastating.
Unbelievable.
His recovery, as you can imagine, was long, incredibly difficult. He literally had to relearn basic motor patterns, like just walking in a straight line.
Oh.
And he talks openly about the emotional toll, the depression, feeling just utterly overwhelmed by it all.
It's hard to even imagine facing that.
Totally. And then, a year after the accident, he goes back to baseball, the sport he loved, dedicated his life to, dreaming of playing professionally. But his return, well, it was anything but smooth. He faced this really humiliating setback. He was the only junior cut from the varsity team, sent down to play with the sophomores on JV.
Oof. That must have been crushing.
He said he just sat in his car crying, trying to find a song to make him feel better. Even his senior year, he barely played, just 11 innings of varsity baseball total. It really looked like that dream was slipping away. But then something profound shifted when he got to college. And it wasn't like some magic overnight transformation into a superstar. Not at all.
Right, it never is.
Instead, he just started accumulating small, consistent habits, little things. He made it a habit to lift weights multiple times a week. His frame, he's 6'4", went from like 170 pounds to a lean 200.
Wow, that's a significant change.
Huge. And he focused on his study habits, his sleep habits, meticulously tracked his diet, his performance, and these seemingly small, consistent actions, just repeated day after day after day, they led to this athletic and personal transformation that was, unimaginable to him when he started.
It's the power of showing up consistently.
Exactly. By his sophomore year, he earned a starting role on the pitching staff. Junior year, voted team captain, made the all-conference team. And by senior year, these habits really paid off, leading him eventually to where he is today, this highly successful writer, speaker on the science of habit formation.
It's an amazing testament to the process.
So if we unpack this, the question isn't just how these small, seemingly insignificant actions lead to such monumental shifts, but maybe why they often feel so inconsequential at the start. Why are they so easy to just dismiss?
That's a crucial point, absolutely. It's precisely because they seem insignificant, right? That they're often overlooked.
Yeah.
But they hold this immense, often hidden power. To really illustrate this, let's maybe look at the British cycling team. Their turnaround was extraordinary.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about this. They were not great for a long time.
Not great is putting it mildly. For nearly a century, really, from 1908 up until 2003, they'd achieved very little. Just one Olympic gold medal in cycling since 1908. And in 110 years, no British cyclist had ever won the Tour de France.
Wow, 110 years.
Yeah, they were just stuck stuck in mediocrity.
Okay, so what changed?
Well, in 2003, they hired Dave Brailsford as their new performance director.
Mm.
And his strategy was revolutionary mainly in its simplicity. He called it the aggregation of marginal gains.
Marginal gains.
Yeah.
Okay, like small improvements.
Yeah. Tiny improvements. His belief was basically, if you improved every single thing you could think of by just 1%, those tiny improvements, when you add them all together, would accumulate into this significant overall advantage.
1% sounds so small, though.
It does. But he wasn't kidding about every single thing. I mean, they looked at the obvious stuff, sure, like optimizing bike seats for comfort, aerodynamics, testing different tires for better grip.
The standard performance stuff.
Right. But they also looked at things you'd probably never consider as part of elite sports performance. Things like finding the most effective massage gels for recovery, having their cyclists wear surgical masks to avoid getting sick during training.
Surgical masks, seriously.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And even optimizing the best pillows and mattresses for their riders to improve sleep quality. They meticulously researched the most effective way to wash their hands to prevent infections. They even painted the inside of their team truck white, just so they could spot tiny dust particles that might degrade bike performance.
Wow. That is obsessive attention to detail. It sounds less like a big strategy and more like just this relentless, almost microscopic pursuit of tiny improvements everywhere.
That's exactly what it was.
But how do you stop that kind of thing, that aggregation of marginal gains, from just becoming overwhelming perfectionism, where you're just constantly chasing tiny things and maybe burning out?
That's a really good question, and I think that's where the focus shifts towards the system itself rather than just the outcome, which we'll definitely dig into more. Brailsford's genius, I think, was in making these 1% improvements part of a continuous process, not just a one-off chase for perfection.
Ah, okay, so it's ongoing refinement.
Exactly. Each little adjustment on its own seems so minor, almost trivial. I mean, who really thinks about the best way to wash your hands or the optimal pillow when you're aiming for an Olympic gold medal?
Right. Seems irrelevant.
But the outcome, it was anything but trivial. Just 5 years later, at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, British cycling absolutely dominated. They won an astonishing 60% of the available gold medals in road and track cycling.
60%? That's incredible.
It's staggering. And then the Tour de France wins started rolling in too. So it's just this compelling illustration of how a collection of minuscule adjustments, none of which seem impressive on their own, can lead to such an overwhelming collective advantage over time.
That story is really inspiring. It makes you rethink chasing those big, dramatic breakthroughs. Maybe the real power is just in the consistent small stuff that adds up.
Indeed. It's the relentless power of compounding. Imagine getting just 1% better at something each day for a year.
Okay.
By the end of that year, you would just be 365% better. You'd actually be over 37 times better than when you started.
37 times.
Right.
From 1% a day.
37 times. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day, you'd decline almost to zero. The math is quite stark. 1.01 to the power of 365 is 37.78. But 0.99 to the power of 365 is just 0.03.
Wow. That difference is huge. It's exponential.
Exactly. It's like, think of an airplane flying from LA to New York. If the pilot adjusts the heading just 3.5 degrees south, right at takeoff, a tiny shift, just a few feet at the nose of the plane.
Barely noticeable.
Right. But that results in the plane landing hundreds of miles away in Washington, D.C. instead of New York. Time doesn't just pass. It magnifies whatever you feed it. Good habits make time your ally. Bad habits make it your enemy.
That makes sense.
And this applies to everything, really. Productivity, knowledge, relationships, they all compound. The more tasks you automate or skills you master, the freer your brain is. Each book you read doesn't just teach you something new, it opens up new ways of thinking. Being a little nicer in each interaction can build this incredibly strong network over time.
Okay, I think that speaks directly to why people often get discouraged when they start trying to make changes. They don't see that immediate, 37x improvement, so they just give up. Too early, probably.
Yes, exactly. Giving up too early is so common.
So how does the source material address that feeling, that frustration, when the progress just isn't visible right away?
That's a very, very common experience.
Mm-hmm.
And brings us to this concept called the plateau of latent potential.
Plateau of latent potential.
Okay.
Basically.
Our progress is rarely linear. We expect it to be, right? We put in effort, we expect immediate proportional results. But in reality, the results of our efforts are usually delayed.
Delayed gratification is hard.
It really is. Think of an ice cube. Say the room is 25 degrees Celsius, then 26, 27, all the way up to 31 degrees. You see no visible change in the ice cube. It just sits there, solid.
Right. Nothing seems to be happening.
But then the temperature hits 32 degrees, and instantly it begins to melt. That single 1-degree shift, which seemed no different from the ones before it, suddenly unlocks this huge visible change.
Ah, so all the previous effort wasn't wasted.
Not at all. It was simply being stored, accumulated, building up the necessary energy for the change.
So, okay, your effort isn't always immediately rewarded, but it's always accumulating, it's building up. And it's during this period, this valley of disappointment, as the source calls it.
The valley of disappointment.
That's the time when you're putting in weeks, maybe months of hard work, but you're not seeing any obvious results. And that's when most people give up, right? Probably right before their breakthrough.
That's exactly it.
So it's about trusting the process, understanding that consistency, not just intensity, is the key, even when it feels like absolutely nothing is happening. Can you think of a time, maybe in your own life, when you felt that valley of disappointment, where you almost gave up just before something clicked? What did that feel like, and maybe how would understanding this plateau have changed how you approached it?
Oh, absolutely. We've all been there, haven't we? It's that nagging feeling, is this even working? Am I wasting my time? It's the person who goes to the gym consistently for a month, looks in the mirror, sees no change, and just stops.
Yeah, totally. Or the writer putting in hours every day, but nothing's taking off yet.
Exactly. The frustration can be immense because our brains are just wired for immediate feedback. We want to see the results now. Understanding the plateau of latent potential, looking back, would have definitely helped reframe that frustration, to see it not as failure, but as a necessary part of the journey. Recognizing that the effort isn't wasted, it's just stored, building towards that breakthrough.
Yeah, it's a call for patience and persistence.
Patience and persistence, exactly. Reminding us that transformation is often more like a slow burn, not some sudden explosion. In this whole concept, it leads us naturally to a pretty fundamental shift in how we should approach personal improvement, moving away from just focusing on goals and towards focusing on systems.
Okay, goals versus systems. This feels really important, but also kind of counterintuitive. We're always taught to set big, audacious goals, right? Smart goals, all that.
Right. Goal setting is deeply ingrained.
So if we're meant to rethink that, what are the biggest traps people fall into when they only focus on goals? And how does focusing on systems actually help avoid those traps?
That's a really important distinction to make because goals do have a place, but relying solely on them has several problems. Firstly, achieving a goal only changes your life for a moment.
Okay, explain that.
Well, say your goal is to win a championship. You win it, you celebrate, awesome, but then what? The underlying system, the practices, the habits, the strategies that produce that win hasn't necessarily changed fundamentally, only the temporary outcome did. We often think we need to change our results, but the results aren't the real problem.
What symptoms?
Exactly. They are symptoms of the systems that cause them.
Yeah.
If you only solve problems at the results level, you're just treating the symptom, not the root cause. True, lasting improvement comes from solving problems at the systems level.
Yeah.
You fix the inputs, and the outputs tend to fix themselves over time.
That makes sense. So what else is problematic about only focusing on goals?
Well, secondly, goals can really restrict your happiness. We often tell ourselves, I'll be happy when I achieve X. I'll be happy when I lose 20 pounds or when I get that promotion.
Yeah, deferred happiness.
Precisely. It postpones satisfaction and completely ignores any joy that could be found in the process itself, in the journey. A systems-first mentality, on the other hand, allows you to feel satisfied anytime your system is running, anytime you're following your process, regardless of the immediate outcome. The joy can be in the doing, not just waiting for the achieving.
I like that. Finding satisfaction in the process.
And finally, goals can actually be at odds with long-term progress. They can create a yo-yo effect. Think about runners who train super intensely for months for a marathon. As soon as they cross that finish line, what often happens? Many of them just stop training. Why? Because the goal, the race, is no longer there to motivate them.
Right, the driving force is gone.
Exactly. When all your hard work is focused only on reaching a specific target, what pushes you forward after you achieve it? Many people just revert to their old habits because the motivation tied to that specific goal simply evaporates. A system, however, is continuous. It's about ongoing improvement, refinement, not just hitting a single endpoint.
Okay, so if goals are the problem, or at least a limited way of thinking, what should we be focusing on instead? How does that foster lasting change?
The answer really lies in focusing on your systems. A system is simply the collection of processes, the routines, the habits that lead to the results.
Can you give an example?
Sure. For a musician, the goal might be to play a new piece perfectly. Their system, however, is how often they practice, how they break down and tackle the difficult measures, their method for getting feedback from their teacher, how they schedule their practice sessions. It's the whole process. Or think about a basketball coach. If they completely ignored the goal of winning the championship and focused only on what the team does at practice each day, the drills, the conditioning, the team communication, the strategy sessions.
They'd probably still win, or at least improve dramatically.
Exactly. They'd still get results, likely even better ones, because they'd be consistently improving the underlying process, the machine that produces the results. If we connect this back to the bigger picture, truly lasting improvement comes from solving problems at the systems level. Your outcomes, your weight, your bank balance, your knowledge, they're all lagging measures of your habits, of your systems. Fix the inputs, the systems, and the outputs will eventually take care of themselves.
This makes so much sense. It really shifts the focus from the destination to like the journey itself, or maybe the vehicle you're consistently building and refining for that journey.
Well put.
But then how do you decide what kind of system to build? If it's not just about hitting a specific target, what's your North Star? What's the guiding principle?
That's where identity-based habits come in. And this, I think, is perhaps the most profound insight in the source material for creating truly lasting change.
Identity-based habits. Okay, tell me more.
So there are basically 3 layers of change. There's outcome change. That's what you get, like losing weight or writing a book. There's process change. That's what you do, like following a new diet or writing every day. And then there's identity change. That's what you believe about yourself, your worldview, your self-image.
Okay, outcome, process, identity.
Most people, when they want to change, they start with the outcome. They say, I want to lose 10 pounds, outcome, and then maybe I will follow this diet process.
That sounds pretty standard.
It is. But the most effective way to change your habits, according to the source, is to focus not on what you want to achieve, but on who you wish to become.
Focus on the identity level first.
Exactly, because your identity literally emerges out of your habits. Every single action you take is like casting a vote for the type of person you wish to become.
Casting a vote. I like that metaphor.
Yeah. So if you finish reading a book, you cast a vote for being the type of person who likes reading. If you go to the gym, even when you don't feel like it, you cast a vote for being the type of person who is fit and healthy. If you meditate for just 5 minutes, you cast a vote for being a mindful person. And over time, these votes accumulate, and they start to reinforce your new identity.
So it's not some overnight switch you flip. It's more like this gradual evolution, these microevolutions of the self, as the source puts it.
Precisely. Microevolutions of the self. It's a great phrase. This perspective shifts the focus from simply doing something to being someone. You're not just trying to run a marathon. You're trying to become a runner.
Or not just trying to write a book, but become a writer.
Exactly. And the real reason habits matter so much isn't just because they get you better results, although they absolutely do that. It's because they can fundamentally change your deepest beliefs about yourself. When you show up day after day, even in a small way, you are providing undeniable evidence to yourself that you are that type of person. You quite literally become your habits. Your actions shape your self-perception, and that new self-perception then fuels further action. It's a positive feedback loop.
Wow. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just about what you do, but who you actually become in the process. So if we're constantly evolving our identity through these small actions, these votes,
Yeah.
how do we actually build these habits? How do we shape this identity intentionally? What's the practical framework for doing this? What's the science behind it?
Right. To build and shape that identity intentionally, we really need to understand the fundamental building blocks of behavior itself.
Yeah.
And this takes us back to some pioneering work, like from psychologists such as Edward Thorndike way back in 1898.
Thorndike, okay. What did he find?
He did these groundbreaking experiments with cats in puzzle boxes. He found that cats, when put in these boxes, would initially just try random things to get out. But eventually they'd stumble upon some simple act, like pulling a specific cord or pressing a lever that would open the door.
Trial and error.
Exactly. But here's the critical part. Thorndike observed that they would start repeating the behaviors that led to satisfying consequences, in this case, escaping the box and getting a food reward.
The reward reinforces the behavior.
Precisely. This laid the groundwork for the core idea in behavior change. Behaviors followed by satisfying consequences are more likely to be repeated, and behaviors followed by unpleasant consequences are less likely to be repeated. It seems obvious now, but it was revolutionary then.
So how does that relate to habits?
Well, habits are, at their core, just mental shortcuts that we've learned from experience. They're basically memories of the steps you followed before to solve a particular problem successfully. Your brain loves efficiency. It wants to preserve conscious attention for the most essential, novel tasks.
Right, it tries to automate things.
Exactly. So it offloads as much as possible to the non-conscious mind. And that's precisely what happens when a habit forms. It reduces your cognitive load, frees up your mental capacity for more complex thinking. Think about tying your shoes.
Yeah.
You don't consciously think through every single step anymore, do you?
No way, it's totally automatic.
It's automatic. That's a habit.
Okay, so if habits are these automatic mental shortcuts, and our brains are naturally trying to offload tasks, how can we consciously step in and shape them? How do we guide that automation process instead of just letting habits form randomly, maybe even bad ones?
This brings us to the four-step pattern of every habit. It's like a dopamine-driven feedback loop. Every single habit, whether it's good or bad, moves through these four stages, always in the same order, creating this powerful neurological loop.
4 steps. Okay, what are they?
First, there's the cue. This is the trigger, the little bit of information that predicts a reward and tells your brain to initiate a behavior. Think of your phone buzzing with a new text message, or waking up in the morning, or smelling that donut shop as you walk by. It's the initial spark.
Got it. The trigger.
Second, there's the craving. This is the motivational force behind every habit. It's the desire for the reward, the change in state. You don't actually crave the phone itself or the donut itself. You crave the feeling or the state they deliver. You want to know what that message says? You want to feel alert? You crave the sugary satisfaction of the donut.
So the craving isn't for the thing, but for the feeling it produces.
Exactly. And what's crucial here is dopamine. We often think of dopamine as just the pleasure chemical, but it's actually central to motivation, learning, and memory. Studies with rats, where scientists either blocked or flooded their brains with dopamine, showed this clearly. Blocking it basically killed their will to live. Flooding it made them perform habits at breakneck speeds, like poking a lever hundreds of times an hour. Wow. So the key takeaway is, dopamine is released not just when you experience pleasure, but maybe even more importantly when you anticipate it. A gambling addict gets a dopamine spike before they even place the bet, not just after they win. A cocaine addict gets a surge when they see the powder. This anticipation, this wanting, rather than just the liking, is what drives us to act. Desire is the engine.
Okay, anticipation drives action. Makes sense. What's step 3?
Third is the response. This is the habit itself, the actual action you take, physical or mental. Grabbing your phone to read the text, biting your nails when you feel stressed, drinking that cup of coffee, buying and eating the donut. This is the action that fulfills the craving.
The habit itself. Okay, and the last step.
And finally, number 4 is the reward. This is the end goal. It satisfies your craving, and critically, it teaches your brain that this particular action sequence was worthwhile. The reward provides that immediate contentment relief from the craving, and it tells your brain, hey, remember this sequence? It worked. Do it again next time you see that cue. For the phone buzz, the reward is satisfying your curiosity about the message. For coffee, it's feeling alert. For the donut, it's that momentary taste satisfaction. This dopamine-driven loop reinforces the habit, making it stronger and more automatic each time.
Okay, that's a really clear breakdown. Cue, craving, response, reward, the whole cycle. So if we understand these 4 steps, then presumably we can start to manipulate them, right? We can intervene at each stage. Is that where the 4 laws of behavior change come from?
That's exactly right. This 4-step framework leads directly to the 4 laws of behavior change, which serve as this really practical guide for creating good habits and breaking bad ones. They are Law 1, make it obvious. Law 2, make it attractive. Law 3, make it easy. And Law 4, make it satisfying.
Obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. Yeah.
The fundamental idea behind these laws is that any goal, any attempt at change is pretty much doomed to fail if it goes against the grain of human nature. These laws work with how our brains are wired, how human behavior naturally unfolds.
All right, let's dive into them. Law 1, make it obvious. That sounds straightforward enough, but what's the deeper meaning here? Especially considering how automatic, how unconscious a lot of our habits become.
Well, the first step, and it's often the most overlooked step in changing behavior, is simply awareness. We have to become aware of our habits first. Many of the cues for our habits, especially the deeply ingrained ones, become practically invisible over time. They just blend into the background.
Like what?
Like the treats sitting on the kitchen counter, the TV remote always next to the couch, the phone constantly buzzing in our pocket. These things subtly influence our actions without us even consciously thinking about it. Our responses to these cues become so automatic that the urge to act just seems to appear out of nowhere.
Yeah, you just find yourself doing it.
Exactly. As one person in the source material humorously described it, their wife literally calls out essential packing items before a trip, including herself. Okay, I've got my keys, I've got my wallet, I've got my glasses, I've got my husband.
Ah, that's funny.
It illustrates the point. The more automatic a behavior becomes, the less we consciously think about it. And many performance failures, many bad habits, stem directly from this lack of self-awareness.
Okay, so how do we become more aware?
A really practical tool suggested is the habit scorecard. It's simple. Just list out all your daily actions for the moment you wake up to when you get into bed. Then, next to each action, categorize it as good plus bad or neutral. This simple act of tracking forces you to become acutely aware of your current habits, their triggers, and all the unconscious decisions you're making throughout the day.
So it's really about making the unconscious conscious, shining a light on those automatic responses so we can actually choose to act differently.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have that awareness, you can start to consciously design your environment. Because environment is like the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. There's a famous equation from the psychologist Kurt Lewin. B equals FPE. Behavior is a function of the person in their environment.
E equals FPE.
Okay. Our actions are influenced so heavily by the world around us, often much more than by sheer willpower alone. Your immediate surroundings can either make good habits easy and bad habits hard, or, the other way around.
Can you give an example of that environmental influence?
Sure. There was a study by Anne Thorndike in a hospital cafeteria. Without saying a word to anyone, she simply rearranged the drinks. She added water to refrigerators that previously only held soda, and she placed these baskets of bottled water near the food stations and cash registers.
Just changing the layout.
Just changing the layout. Over 3 months, soda sales dropped by 11.4%, while bottled water sales increased by 25.8%. Simply making water more obvious and convenient led to a significant behavioral shift with zero extra motivation needed.
Wow. No nagging, no posters, just making it visible.
Exactly, and you see this mirrored in-store layouts all the time. Expensive brands are often placed at eye level, those end caps at the end of aisles. They're money-making machines because they're so obvious. Something like 45% of Coca-Cola sales come from those end-of-aisle racks. The most obvious option often wins. People drink Bud Light because it's in every bar. They visit Starbucks because there seems to be one on every corner.
Or in your own home, maybe leaving your running shoes right by the front door makes you more likely to go for that run.
Exactly. If the healthy snacks are in a visible bowl on the counter, you're more likely to grab those instead of digging for the hidden cookies.
It's fascinating how much our choices are driven just by what's right in front of us, often without us even realizing it. Our vision seems to be the primary gateway for these cues.
It absolutely is. Our vision is by far our most dominant sense. We have about 11 million sensory receptors in our body, and roughly 10 million of those are dedicated to sight.
10 million out of 11. Wow.
Yeah. So visual cues are the greatest catalyst for our behavior. A small change in what you see can lead to a big shift in what you do. There's a famous example from Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. In the early 90s, they etched these small images of flies near the drains in the men's urinals.
Flies in the urinals. Why?
Because apparently men subconsciously aim for the target. It improved their aim significantly, and the airport reported an 8% reduction in bathroom cleaning costs per year.
That's incredible, just from a little sticker.
It shows the power of a visual cue. So the strategy for Law 1 is clear. Make the cues for your good habits obvious, visible, and unavoidable.
Yeah.
And conversely, make the cues for your bad habits invisible, hidden, out of sight. Sprinkle triggers for good habits throughout your environment. Make the best choice the most obvious one.
Okay, so make the cue obvious. But once it's obvious, how do you make sure you actually act on it consistently? How do you bridge the gap between seeing the cue and doing the thing?
That's where you can use something called implementation intentions. This basically means making a specific plan for when and where you'll perform a new habit. The formula is super simple. When situation Aries, I will response B.
Okay, when X happens, I will do Y.
Exactly. And a study on exercise showed how powerful this is. They had different groups. Some just got motivation about why exercise is good. Others got the motivation and were asked to formulate a specific plan, like, During the next week, I will partake in at least 20 minutes of vigorous exercise on day at time and place.
And what happened?
The group that made the specific plan had a dramatically higher follow-through rate, something like 91% actually exercised, compared to only 35 to 38% of the groups that only got the motivation.
Wow, that's a huge difference. So motivation alone really isn't enough. You need a plan.
You really do. Having that clear, predefined time and place removes the mental friction of deciding when and where to do it each day. It makes the decision beforehand.
It's like pre-committing to the action, makes it almost automatic when the situation arises.
Precisely. And building on that idea, there's another technique called habit stacking. This leverages something called the Diderot effect.
The Diderot effect, what's
It
that?
describes how buying one new thing often leads to a spiral of other purchases. You buy a new couch, then you feel like you need new end tables, then a new rug. It creates this chain of consumption. Human behavior often follows a similar chain reaction.
How so?
Well, think about it. Going to the bathroom might lead to washing your hands, which reminds you that the towels are dirty, so you put them in the laundry, which leads to adding detergent to your shopping list. See the chain. No behavior happens in isolation. Each action becomes a cue that triggers the next behavior.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. One thing leads to another.
So habit stacking takes advantage of this natural connectedness. You identify a current habit you already do reliably every day, like pouring your morning coffee, and then you stack your desired new behavior right on top of it. The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit.
Okay, give me some examples.
Sure. After I pour my cup of coffee each morning, I will meditate for 1 minute. Or, after I take off my work shoes when I get home, I will immediately change into my workout clothes. Another one. After I sit down for dinner, I will say one thing I'm grateful for today.
Ah, okay. You're anchoring the new habit to an existing one.
Exactly. You anchor it. And you can even chain multiple small habits together, creating this powerful momentum that carries you from one desired behavior to the next. Your morning routine could become, after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 60 seconds. After I meditate for 60 seconds, I will write my to-do list for the day. After I write my to-do list, I will immediately begin my first task. It's about creating an automatic game plan for what comes next, reducing the need for conscious decision-making.
That's a really clever way to leverage routines you already have and create this kind of ripple effect of good habits. Okay, that's law one, make it obvious. Let's move on to law two, make it attractive. What makes a habit attractive? And how can we possibly design our habits to be irresistible, especially when they might initially feel like, a chore?
That's a great question because the modern world is absolutely saturated with what the source calls supernormal stimuli.
Supernormal stimuli.
Yeah, these are basically highly engineered, exaggerated versions of reality that prey on our natural desires. Think about mannequins with impossible body proportions, social media delivering far more likes and validation in minutes than we could ever get in real life, online porn splicing together stimulating scenes at an unnatural rate.
Junk food, too.
Absolutely. Junk food is a super concentrated form of calories and fat and salt. Hard liquor is a concentrated form of alcohol. Video games offer faster rewards and challenges than most real-world tasks. Our ancestral brains, the ones evolved on the savannah, are just ill-equipped to resist these modern pleasure-packed experiences. Our ancient instincts just go wild, driving us towards excessive behaviors.
So we're kind of fighting an uphill battle against these engineered temptations.
We are. So the goal then with Law 2 is to make your habits the ones you actually want to cultivate just as attractive, just as irresistible as these highly stimulating modern inventions.
Okay, how do we do that? How do we make, say, exercise or eating vegetables attractive?
To understand how, we need to revisit that dopamine spike we talked about earlier. Remember, dopamine isn't just about pleasure. It's crucial for motivation, learning, and memory. And the key insight for making habits attractive is that dopamine is released most powerfully, not when you experience the reward, but when you anticipate it.
Right. The anticipation is the driver.
Exactly. The gambling addict gets that dopamine spike before placing the bet. The cocaine addict gets a surge when they just see the powder. This anticipation, this wanting that precedes the liking, is what truly drives action. Desire is the engine of behavior. And the greater the anticipation, the greater the dopamine spike, and the higher your motivation to actually act.
So it's about building anticipation for the rewards of our good habits. How do we harness that powerful feeling for things that might not seem immediately rewarding?
Well, one really effective strategy is called temptation bundling. This involves pairing an action you want to do with an action you need to do.
Bundling temptation.
Okay.
Okay, like how?
There's a great story about Ronan Byrne, an engineering student in Dublin. He loved watching Netflix, but he knew he needed to exercise more. So what did he do? He actually hacked his stationary bike.
He hacked his bike.
Yeah, he rigged it so that Netflix would only play if he was cycling at a certain speed. If he slowed down too much, the show would pause,
That's brilliant.
isn't it? He was, as he put it, eliminating obesity one Netflix binge at a time. He literally bundled his want, watching Netflix, with his need, exercising. The formula is basically 1, after current habit, I will have it I need. Then 2, after habit I need, I will have it I want.
Okay, need then want. Give me another example.
Sure, maybe. After my morning coffee, current habit, I will say one thing I'm grateful for, habit I need. After I say one thing I'm grateful for, I will read the news, habit I want. Or, after I make 5 sales calls for work, need, I will take a 15-minute break to watch sports highlights. It makes the necessary habit feel like a gateway to something you actually enjoy.
I like that, making the need unlock the want. What else makes habits attractive?
Another incredibly powerful, almost seductive pull is the pull of social norms. Humans are fundamentally herd animals. We have this deep, innate drive to fit in, to bond with others, to earn the respect and approval of our peers. Historically, being cast out from the tribe was basically a death sentence.
Right, survival depended on the group.
Exactly. So we are hardwired to imitate those around us. The behaviors of the tribe feel attractive. Consider the famous story of the Polgar sisters.
The chess prodigies.
That's them. Their father, Laszlo, deliberately raised them to be chess champions. Their home wasn't just a home. It was a literal chess culture. Chess books lined the shelves, famous players visited, games were constantly analyzed. For the sisters, chess obsession felt completely normal, even enjoyable.
So the environment made it attractive.
Totally. There's a story where Sophia, one of the sisters, was caught playing chess in the bathroom in the middle of the night. When her father asked what she was doing, she supposedly said, "Daddy, they won't leave me alone," talking about the chess pieces. The culture made the behavior not just normal, but deeply attractive and engaging for them.
That's an amazing anecdote. It really drives home how much our environment, and especially the people in it, shape our perception of what's normal, what's desirable. So this raises a big question. How much are our daily actions really shaped by this invisible peer pressure? And how can we consciously harness that pressure for good?
That invisible peer pressure is incredibly potent, much more than we probably realize. We unconsciously imitate the habits of those closest to us, our friends, our family, our coworkers. There was one groundbreaking study, for example, that found a person's chances of becoming obese increased by a staggering 57% if they had a friend who became obese.
57%, just from having an obese friend.
Yeah. And conversely, if one partner in a relationship lost weight, the other partner would also slim down about 1/3 of the time. Our social circles exert this invisible yet powerful gravitational pull on our habits.
Okay, so how do we use that strategically?
A really powerful strategy is to deliberately join a culture where your desired behavior is already the normal behavior.
Hmm.
And ideally, where you already have something in common with the group beyond just the habit itself.
Find your tribe, basically.
Find your tribe. Companies like Nerd Fitness, for example, specifically help nerds, misfits, and mutants get healthy. They create this space where wanting to get fit feels normal, even cool, for people who might otherwise feel intimidated or out of place in a traditional gym setting. Nothing sustains motivation better than belonging to the tribe. It transforms a personal quest into a shared one, and that shared identity reinforces your new behavior.
That makes sense. And we're also drawn to behaviors that earn us respect within the group, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We want to fit in first, but then we want to stand out. We're drawn to behaviors that earn us respect, approval, status. Doing impressive muscle-ups at the gym, having accomplished children, achieving professional success. These things aren't just for ourselves. They signal status within our tribes. We naturally copy the behaviors of successful people because success itself is attractive. We look at their marketing strategies, their recipes, their communication styles, hoping some of that success rubs off.
Okay, so join a supportive culture, leverage social norms, but what if the habit itself just feels inherently unpleasant, like really difficult work or something you just dread? Is there a way to make it feel more attractive internally beyond just the external rewards or social influences?
Yes, there is. The final piece of making a habit attractive is to consciously reframe your mindset about it. Our behavior is heavily dependent on how we interpret events and cues. The same cues say seeing a cigarette can spark a strong craving in one person and feelings of repulsion in another, largely based on their internal associations and predictions.
So change the association.
Exactly. By reframing your habits to highlight their benefits rather than their drawbacks, you can quickly reprogram your mind to find them more attractive. Instead of thinking, ugh, I need to go run in the morning, try reframing it as, it's time to build endurance and get faster.
Okay, focus on the positive outcome.
Right. For saving money, instead of associating it only with sacrifice, reframe it as building freedom. Living below my current means increases my future means. Even something like pre-performance anxiety can be reframed. Instead of thinking I'm nervous, try I'm getting an adrenaline rush to help me concentrate and perform at my best.
Shifting the narrative in your head.
Precisely. The author shares how his own baseball pregame ritual wasn't just about physically warming up, it was about putting him in a specific mental state, competitive, focused, ready. You can intentionally associate a desired mental state with the start of any habit once you ritualize that beginning. Make the start feel attractive.
Okay, that covers make it obvious and make it attractive really well. Next up is Law 3. Make it easy. This sounds pretty intuitive, of course. We do things that are easy. But what's the real secret to making things genuinely easy, especially when the task itself might seem inherently difficult or daunting?
Well, it's interesting because one of the core ideas here is actually counterintuitive for many people who strive for excellence. Additionally, the emphasis shouldn't necessarily be on quality, but on quantity and repetition.
Quantity over quality. That sounds wrong for building good habits.
It sounds wrong, but consider this study from Jerry Yolzman, a photography professor. He divided his students into two groups. One was the quantity group. They were graded solely on the number of photos they submitted. 100 photos got an A, 90 a B, and so on. The other was the quality group. They only needed to produce one single photo, but it had to be nearly perfect.
Okay, quantity versus quality. What happened?
At the end of the term, all the best photos, the highest quality ones, came from the quantity group.
Really?
Because they were busy taking photos. They were constantly experimenting, trying different compositions, different lighting, learning from their mistakes, honing their skills through sheer repetition. The quality group, meanwhile, spent most of the semester speculating about perfection, theorizing, and in the end, they produced maybe one mediocre photo because they were too afraid to fail or experiment.
Wow. So just doing the reps matters more initially.
It highlights that frequency is crucial for habit formation, perhaps even more than time spent initially. New habits need hundreds, sometimes thousands, of repetitions to become truly automatic, to get embedded in your nervous system. You need to practice.
Okay, so practice frequently. How does easy fit in?
The core principle here is what the source calls the law of least effort. Despite what productivity gurus might tell us about hustle and grind, fundamental human nature is to be, well, lazy. We tend to do what is most convenient. Our brains are wired to conserve energy whenever possible.
Path of least resistance.
Exactly. When choosing between two similar options, people will naturally gravitate towards the one that requires the least amount of work or effort. So, often, the problem isn't that you lack motivation, it's that there's too much friction associated with the good habit.
It's like you said before, like trying to force water through a bent hose instead of trying to constantly pump up your motivation, which is tiring.
Right, it requires effort and increases tension.
Just remove the bend. Make it easy for the behavior to flow naturally.
That's the perfect analogy. Making habits simple and easy is like removing the bend in the hose. It allows things to flow with less effort. And one of the most effective ways to reduce this friction is, again, through environment design. We talked about it for making cues obvious. But here, we optimize the environment to make the action itself easier to perform.
How so?
For instance, choose locations for your habits that are already along your daily path. You're far more likely to actually go to the gym if it's directly on your commute to or from work, right? Stopping there doesn't add much friction compared to going way out of your way.
True. Convenience matters.
It matters hugely. This idea comes from lean production methods used in Japanese factories. They relentlessly looked for ways to remove wasted motion by redesigning workspaces so workers didn't have to waste time bending, stretching, or reaching for tools. They made the desired actions effortless.
So applying that at home might mean
preparing your workout clothes the night before and laying them out. Keeping healthy snacks chopped and ready in the fridge. Setting up your workspace so everything you need is within easy reach. Each little optimization removes a small piece of friction that could otherwise derail your good intentions when you're tired or unmotivated.
technology can help here too, right? Making things easier.
Oh, absolutely. Technology excels at automating ease. Think about voice-activated speakers. It's often easier to say, play my workout playlist, than to find your phone, unlock it, open the app, and find the playlist. Even small things matter. The British government, for example, increased the response rate for tax forms significantly from 19.2% to 23.4% just by providing a direct link to the form instead of making people navigate through a web page to find it.
Less clicks, more action.
Exactly. The central idea is just to create an environment where doing the right thing is as easy as possible, where the good habit is practically the path of least resistance.
Okay, that makes sense for building good habits. What about for breaking bad habits? How do you use this law in reverse? How do you make bad habits harder?
For bad habits, you simply apply the inversion of the third law. Make it difficult. You want to increase the friction, add steps, make it inconvenient until it becomes impractical or annoying to do the bad habit.
Add friction. Got it. Like what?
Victor Hugo, the writer, famously used this when he was facing an impossible deadline for The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He was procrastinating badly. So he gathered up all his clothes and had his assistant lock them away, leaving him only with a large shawl.
He locked away his clothes.
Yeah. Lacking any suitable clothes to go outdoors, he was essentially forced to stay in his study and write. He finished the book 2 weeks early. This is an extreme example of a commitment device, a choice you make in the present that controls your actions in the future by raising the barrier to bad habits.
That's intense but effective. What are some less extreme examples?
Things like buying snacks in individual packages instead of large bags to slow down mindless eating, voluntarily putting yourself on a ban list for casinos or specific tempting websites, leaving your credit cards or wallet at home when you go shopping if you're trying to curb spending. It's about adding deliberate friction.
Using friction strategically.
Yes, and automating good habits while simultaneously eliminating bad ones is incredibly powerful. John Henry Patterson, whose retail store was losing money because employees kept stealing from the till, bought the patent rights to the first mechanical cash register. The register automatically logged sales and locked the money away. It essentially automated ethical behavior by making stealing impractical. His business went from losing money to making a $5,000 profit within 6 months.
Wow, automating ethics.
Kind of. And we can make similar one-time choices that automate good habits for the future. Things like setting up an automatic savings plan that pulls money from your paycheck before you even see it, cutting your cable service to reduce passive TV watching, buying a high-quality mattress to improve sleep automatically. These one-off decisions lock in future behavior.
And making bad habits impractical.
Yeah, things like unplugging the video game console and putting it away after each use, adding that extra setup step, removing the batteries from the TV remote and keeping them in another drawer, putting your phone in another room entirely until lunchtime. Sometimes just removing a single cue or adding one small step of friction is enough for the entire habit to just fade away. Self-control is a short-term strategy and it gets depleted. Optimizing your environment for difficulty is a long-term sustainable one.
That's brilliant. Just disrupting that easy access point can really break the chain of a bad habit. And speaking of making things easy, what about that famous 2-minute rule? How does that fit into this strategy of making habits easy?
The 2-minute rule is fantastic. It states quite simply, when you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do.
Less than 2 minutes? That seems really short.
It is. But the point is, nearly any habit can be scaled down into a 2-minute version. So read before bed each night becomes read 1 page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. Study for my exam becomes open my notes. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes.
So you're just focusing on the very first step.
Exactly. The idea isn't necessarily to only do 2 minutes, although sometimes that's fine. The goal is to make the start of the habit incredibly easy, almost frictionless. It's about mastering the art of showing up. It acts as a gateway habit. Once you've taken out the yoga mat or put on your running shoes or opened your notes, it's much easier to continue for longer. You've overcome the initial inertia, the hardest part.
Getting started is often the biggest hurdle.
It really is. The point of the 2-minute rule is to master the habit of showing up, not to achieve perfection right away. People sometimes think it's weird to get excited about reading just 1 page or meditating for only 1 minute. But the source makes a great point. If you can't even learn the basic skill of showing up consistently, then you have little hope of ever mastering the finer details of the habit later on. You have to standardize the beginning before you can optimize the rest.
Standardize before you optimize. I like that.
Yeah. And the secret is to always stay below the point where the habit starts to feel like work or a chore, especially in the beginning. Greg McKeown, the author of Essentialism, built a daily journaling habit by committing to writing less than he felt like each day. He stopped before it seemed like a hassle.
So you finish feeling successful, not drained.
Exactly. This not only makes the habit much easier to maintain long term, but it also powerfully reinforces the identity you want to build. Every time you put on your running shoes or read that single page, you're casting another vote for being a runner or being a reader, even if it's just for 2 minutes. You're showing up.
That's a perfect lead-in to the final law, Law 4. Make it satisfying. If habits are driven by that dopamine feedback loop, then the reward, the satisfaction at the end must be absolutely key, right?
It's absolutely critical. This is the cardinal rule of behavior change, underpinning all the others. What is rewarded is repeated. What is punished is avoided. Our brains are fundamentally wired to pursue actions that lead to satisfying outcomes.
Okay, so we need rewards. But what's the challenge here? Especially with good habits where the real payoff might be far off.
Main challenge lies in what we can call the immediate gratification problem. Our human brains evolved over millennia in what anthropologists call an immediate return environment.
Immediate return, like our ancestors on the savannah.
Exactly. Think about their daily concerns. Finding food, finding water, seeking shelter, avoiding predators. Most of their actions produced immediate outcomes. You hunted, you ate. You saw danger, you ran. The feedback loop between action and consequence was very short, very direct.
Makes sense. Survival depended on immediate feedback.
Right, but modern society is largely a delayed return environment. You do a good job at work today, but you might not get paid for weeks or months. You exercise today, but you might not see noticeable fitness results for months, maybe even a year. You save money now, but retirement could be decades away.
So the rewards for many of our most important long-term behaviors are delayed.
They're significantly delayed. And our brains, still running that ancient operating system, strongly prefer quick payoffs. This fundamental mismatch between our evolutionary wiring for immediate gratification and the delayed rewards of modern life creates a huge hurdle for building good habits. Success in almost every field today requires us to ignore an immediate, often pleasurable reward, like watching TV, in favor of delayed, often larger one, like being fit or knowledgeable.
Okay, so that's the problem. Our brains crave instant rewards, but good habits often have delayed ones. How do we bridge that gap? How do we make those long-term delayed reward habits satisfying enough in the short term to keep us going?
The key thing, the absolutely vital thing in getting a habit to stick, especially early on, is to feel successful immediately after performing the habit, even if it's just in a small way. That feeling of success, however minor, signals to your brain that the habit paid off and the effort was worthwhile.
Immediate reinforcement.
Exactly. Because early on, good habits can feel like pure sacrifice, can't they? You go to the gym a few times, but you don't feel stronger, you don't look different yet. It's only months later that the intrinsic reward, the actual feeling of strength or vitality or accomplishment, really kicks in. So in the beginning, you need an immediate, artificial reason to stay on track. This is where adding immediate rewards becomes essential. They bridge that gap, they keep you excited and motivated, while those bigger delayed rewards are still accumulating in the background.
Okay, so add a little immediate reward, but what kind of reward? Does it matter?
Yes, it matters hugely. The crucial detail here is to select short-term rewards that reinforce the identity you're trying to build, not conflict with it.
Reinforce, not conflict. Give me an example.
Okay, say your goal is to exercise more to become a healthier person. If your immediate reward for going to the gym is eating a big bowl of ice cream.
Uh-oh. Mixed messages.
Exactly. You're casting votes for conflicting identities. You're saying, I am a fit person who exercises, but also I am a person who indulges in unhealthy treats as a reward. Those messages clash. Instead, maybe your reward for exercising could be something like a relaxing massage later that day, which aligns with taking care of your body. Or if you're sticking to your budget, maybe the reward is a luxurious bubble bath, reinforcing self-care and freedom, not buying an expensive new jacket, which conflicts with the goal. The short-term reward needs to be aligned with your long-term vision and the identity you're aiming for.
That's a really important distinction. The reward should match the desired identity. What about using the flip side of satisfaction, making bad habits unsatisfying?
Yes, using the inversion of the fourth law. Make it immediately unsatisfying. This is about introducing an immediate cost or punishment to a bad habit. There's a rather chilling but illustrative story about Roger Fisher, a Harvard negotiation expert. He proposed a radical idea during the Cold War to prevent accidental nuclear war.
Okay.
He suggested that the nuclear launch codes be surgically implanted inside a capsule, right next to the heart of a volunteer aide who would constantly accompany the president. To launch the nukes, the president would first have to take a butcher knife and personally kill this volunteer to retrieve the codes.
Good grief. That's horrifying.
That's horrifying. But his point was powerful. His Pentagon colleagues were appalled, saying, "My God, that's terrible. Having to kill someone would distort the president's judgment. He might never push the button." And Fisher's response was basically, exactly. It highlights that the more immediate, visceral, and costly a mistake is, the faster and more powerfully we learn from it. We avoid immediate pain.
Wow. Okay, point taken. We learn quickly from immediate severe consequences. How can we apply that, less drastically?
We can apply this principle using things like a habit contract and accountability partners. Think about laws in society, like seatbelt laws or public smoking bans. They function as social habit contracts. The group agrees on rules, and there are immediate penalties, fines, social disapproval for breaking them.
Okay, so a personal habit contract.
Exactly. You can create a personal habit contract, it could be verbal or written, where you clearly state your commitment to a specific habit and, crucially, the specific punishment or cost you'll incur if you fail. Then you get one or two accountability partners to witness it and help enforce the consequence.
Having someone else watch you makes a difference.
It makes a huge difference. There's an anecdote about Brian Harris, an entrepreneur who wanted to lose weight. He created a contract with his wife and his personal trainer. The stakes were real. If he missed logging his food intake or weighing himself, he had to pay his trainer $200. Later, if he failed specific workout tasks, the penalty was even worse for him. He had to wear an Alabama hat, the arch rival of his beloved Auburn Tigers, for the rest of the day or quarter.
Huh. That's clever. Using social embarrassment and rivalry.
Right. Knowing someone is watching, knowing there's an immediate, tangible cost, financial or social, makes you far less likely to procrastinate or skip the habit. It's not just about failing yourself anymore. It's about facing that immediate, unsatisfying consequence, often involving others. This social pressure makes the cost of inaction feel much more immediate and painful.
Okay, accountability partners and habit contracts. What else makes habits satisfying, maybe in a more positive way?
Habit tracking is another simple, yet incredibly effective way to make habits satisfying. Just the act of tracking your progress provides immediate visual evidence that you're moving forward.
Like checking off a box.
Exactly, like checking off a box or moving a paperclip. There's the story of Trent Darsmid, a rookie stockbroker who became successful using a paperclip strategy. He started each day with 2 jars on his desk, one filled with 120 paperclips, the other empty. After each sales call he made, he moved one paperclip from the full jar to the empty jar. He wouldn't stop until all 120 clips were moved.
Simple but visual.
Super visual. Benjamin Franklin famously tracked his progress on 13 virtues using a daily checklist. This kind of tracking provides immediate satisfaction. You see the proof of your work. It reinforces the behavior. It also taps into the don't break the chain method. Seeing a streak of successes builds momentum and makes you reluctant to miss a day.
Yeah, you don't want to break that streak.
Right, and if you do miss a day, which happens, the key is to embrace the never miss twice rule. Missing once is an accident, it's an interruption. Missing twice, that's potentially the start of a new, unwanted habit. Successful people aren't perfect, but they rebound incredibly quickly. They get right back on track after a slip-up.
Never miss twice. That's a good mantra. Is there any downside to tracking?
There is a potential pitfall, known as Goodhart's Law. It basically states, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means you have to be careful not to optimize for the measure itself at the expense of the actual purpose of the habit. For example, if you're tracking the number of steps you take, you might find yourself just pacing around your living room at night to hit your number, which isn't really the point of getting more active throughout the day. Or a restaurant owner focusing solely on daily revenue might miss that customers aren't finishing meals or leaving tips, which could be a better measure of the chef's actual performance. So track, yes, but make sure you're tracking something meaningful that reflects real progress. And automate tracking wherever possible. Credit card statements, track spending, fitness trackers, log steps, calendars, record appointments to make it effortless.
Okay, that's a great overview of the 4 laws. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. This gives us a really robust framework for building good habits and breaking bad ones. But how do we keep it going? How do we sustain these habits over the long haul, especially when the novelty wears off, the initial excitement fades, and things just get boring?
Ah, yes. Sustaining motivation. That's where the Goldilocks rule comes into play.
The Goldilocks rule, like the porridge.
Exactly. Not too hot, not too cold, but just right. Steve Martin, the comedian, famously talked about his 18 years of struggle before he hit it big. He performed tirelessly in small, often empty clubs, facing the fear of failure night after night. But he stuck with it. The key to maintaining motivation and achieving that peak level of desire, according to the research, is to work on tasks that are of just manageable difficulty.
Just manageable difficulty.
These are tasks that are roughly, say, 4% beyond your current abilities. This aligns with something called the Yerkes-Dodson law, which basically suggests that performance increases with arousal or challenge, but only up to a certain point. If a task is too easy, you get bored. If it's too difficult, you get overwhelmed and discouraged. You need tasks that are right on the edge of your current abilities, challenging enough to keep you engaged, but not so hard that you lose hope.
That sweet spot. This is where the magic happens, isn't it?
Yeah,
That zone that keeps you locked in, focused, and feeling like you're making progress.
that's exactly it. It's about finding that edge where you're stretched but not snapped.
Mm.
And often, the greatest villain on the path to self-improvement isn't failure, it's boredom. Mastery requires practice, relentless practice. And practice inevitably becomes boring and routine after a while. It's not glamorous.
Yeah, the daily grind.
The daily grind.
Yeah.
And successful people, the ones who achieve mastery, aren't necessarily the ones with the most motivation initially. They're the ones who find a way to show up and put in the work, despite the feelings of boredom. As one elite coach put it, at some point, it comes down to who can handle the boredom of training every day. You almost have to fall in love with the boredom, fall in love with the process itself.
Fall in love with boredom. That's a tough ask.
It is. But finding ways to keep it engaging helps. And variable rewards can actually amplify cravings and reduce boredom. B.F. Skinner, the famous behavioral psychologist, accidentally discovered this with rats. He found that if a rat got a food pellet, every single time it pressed a lever, it would press it steadily but eventually get bored. But if the reward was unpredictable, sometimes it got a pellet, sometimes it didn't. The rat would press the lever compulsively, incessantly.
Like gambling.
Exactly like gambling or social media notifications. That unpredictability is highly addictive. The sweet spot for maintaining desire seems to be around a 50-50 split between success and failure, or reward and non-reward. You need just enough winning to feel satisfied and competent, but just enough wanting or uncertainty to keep you striving and engaged. That variation prevents stagnation and keeps things interesting.
Okay, so find the Goldilocks zone, embrace the boredom, maybe introduce some variability. What about our individual differences? Our natural talents or predispositions? Does genetics play a role in what habits come easier to us, and how should that influence how we approach this?
Absolutely. Genetics plays a significant role. Your genes definitely nudge you in certain directions. Robert Plumman, a leading behavioral geneticist, makes the strong claim that basically all traits are heritable to some degree. Things like personality traits like conscientiousness or openness, your baseline level of happiness, your resistance to stress, even your likelihood of developing addictions.
So nature definitely plays a part alongside nurture.
It does. While genes don't rigidly determine your destiny, they absolutely create deeply rooted preferences and talents. They make certain skills and behaviors easier or more enjoyable for some people than for others. The crucial thing is, we need to work with the grain of our genes, not against it. We shouldn't apologize for our natural inclinations or try to force ourselves into molds that just don't fit.
So this raises an important question then for you listening. How can you figure out your unique strengths, your genetic predispositions, and then lean into them? How do you find your game?
That's the key question. You need to engage in some self-reflection and experimentation. Ask yourself, where do I seem to get greater returns than the average person for the same amount of effort? What activities or skills seem to come more naturally to me? When do I feel most alive, most engaged, most authentic? Where does work feel like play? Answering these questions can point you towards your areas of natural advantage. It's about finding the game where the odds are stacked in your favor, where you can maximize your strengths and, just as importantly, actually enjoy the process more.
Find the game where you have an edge.
Right, and sometimes that edge comes from combining skills. Scott Adams, the creator of the Dilbert comic strip, is a great example. He openly admits he wasn't the best artist nor the funniest stand-up comedian, but he combined his decent drawing skills, his witty observational humor about office life, and his business background to create something totally unique and incredibly successful.
Ah, the combination creates the unique advantage.
Exactly. When you can't win by being better, you can often win by being different. By combining skills, you significantly reduce the competition. Another strategy is specialization, mastering a very specific narrow skill where you can become world-class. Think competitive arm wrestling versus general bodybuilding.
Find your niche.
Find your niche. There's a good analogy in the source. Boiling water softens a potato but hardens an egg. You can't really control whether you start out as a potato or an egg, genetically speaking, but you can choose to play in a game, an environment where it's better to be hard or better to be soft. Genes don't eliminate the need for hard work. They clarify what you should be working hard on. They point you towards the areas where your efforts are likely to yield the greatest, most satisfying returns.
Okay, so it's about aligning your habits and your efforts with your natural inclinations, finding your unique advantage, whether through combination or specialization, and then putting in the consistent work there. That sounds like a really powerful recipe for long-term satisfaction and genuine success.
It really is.
But what happens if your life changes dramatically? Or your core identity shifts? Maybe an athlete retires, or someone changes careers or becomes a parent. How do you maintain flexibility and adapt your habits and identity when those big shifts happen?
That's the final, crucial piece of the puzzle, maintaining identity flexibility.
Mm.
Major life transitions like the ones you mentioned, an athlete retiring, a military veteran returning to civilian life, a CEO selling their company, can often lead to a profound sense of identity loss. If your entire self-worth, your entire definition of who you are, is wrapped up tightly in one specific role or identity, its absence can be incredibly destabilizing.
Yeah, who am I now?
Exactly. The importance here lies in the idea of continuous editing and upgrading of your beliefs about yourself. Your identity shouldn't be brittle. It should be adaptable. The author advocates for processes like conducting an annual review or an integrity report.
An integrity report, what's that involve?
It's basically a process of revisiting your core values, honestly assessing how your recent actions have aligned or misaligned with those values, and setting higher standards for the future. These kinds of reflective processes help prevent that gradual slide back into old patterns or identities that no longer serve you. They ensure that your habits continue to align with your desired, evolving identity. It's a reminder to regularly prune habits that are no longer relevant, take on new challenges that stretch you, or sometimes even dial back and refocus on the fundamentals, always with an eye on the person you are actively becoming. It helps ensure your identity remains flexible and resilient, rather than becoming rigid and vulnerable when external circumstances change.
Okay, let's unpack this. So your identity isn't this fixed, concrete thing. It's more like a living, breathing concept that evolves and strengthens with every single vote you cast through your habits. It's an ongoing process of self-creation, really.
Exactly. It's the ongoing process of becoming. Your habits are the pathway, the channel through which you develop and reinforce your deepest beliefs about yourself.
Yeah.
In a very real sense, you literally become your habits.
Wow. What a deep dive this has truly been. We've covered so much ground today. We talked about the incredible, almost hidden compounding power of those small atomic habits.
The 1% improvement.
Yeah. And why focusing on systems, the processes, rather than just the end goals is so critical for creating lasting, meaningful change. We explored the profound impact of identity-based habits, how focusing on who you want to become is the most powerful driver.
Shifting from outcome to identity.
Exactly. And then we got really practical with the 4 laws for behavior change. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
The practical toolkit.
Absolutely. And we didn't stop there. We also explored how to sustain motivation over the long haul, using that Goldilocks rule of just manageable difficulty, how to find your unique strengths by understanding your genetics and leaning into them, and the vital importance of continuously refining your identity, keeping it flexible.
Putting it all together for the long run.
This isn't just interesting theory. It really feels like a practical, actionable guide to transforming your life one tiny atomic step at a time. It's truly remarkable what you can build if you just don't stop. It's remarkable the business you can build if you don't stop working consistently. It's remarkable the body you can build if you don't stop training. It's remarkable the knowledge you can build if you don't stop learning. It's remarkable the fortune you can build if you don't stop saving. It's remarkable the friendships you can build if you don't stop caring. These small habits, they don't just add up linearly.
No, they compound exponentially.
They compound. So as you go about your day today, maybe consider this. What small vote for your desired identity will you cast today? Take just a moment to reflect on your own environments. Notice those subtle cues around you. Think about the predictions your brain is making about what will bring satisfaction. How can you make the good choices, the choices aligned with who you want to become, just a little more obvious, a little more attractive, a little easier, and a little more satisfying in your own life? The power to change, it really is in your hands, one atomic habit at a time.